Wrexham top the table. A Barnsley debutant scores. Rotherham United pick up a point on the road. It's a slimmed down fixture list on this week's League One Lowdown. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the League One Lowdown from the Deck Podcast Network. We're back. A little bit less to talk about than usual, but we'll make do. 3 matches, and we've got some really good listener questions that we're going to get to in the second half of the show. I'm Jamie Johnson, and alongside me, as always, Seb. Seb Jones, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you, Jamie. Yeah, how are you doing?
Yes, I'm good. Keeping busy. We were talking a little bit off air. I was at Gainsborough Trinity, so in the Northern Premier League yesterday. You were at a game we're going to talk about, the Barnsley game that we'll get to. But it's nice. The weather, though, taking a bit of a turn for the worse. Now we're
Yeah,
getting out of summer is the only
we-
problem. So the football season ramps up and the weather gets worse.
it was downhill from here, I'm afraid. Yeah, absolutely. Sort of. Yeah, the night is drawing in sooner, and yeah, plenty. I'm sure we've seen lots of darkness in the weeks to come before the clocks all change. But yeah, as you said, I was at Oakwell. I'm sure we'll come on to that a little bit later on. But nice to come away from Oakwell with a smile on my face. It's been a long time coming, but yeah, it was good to be there. And I'm on holiday next week as well, so I'm excited, looking forward to that. But don't worry, I'll be back in time for next week's recording. So yeah, plenty to be happy and smiling about.
Yeah, it's Seb, always on holiday Jones,
Uh,
coming up that corner. But as you mentioned, the Barnsley game, we'll get on to that. That'll be our second game. We're going to talk about Wrexham Shrewsbury. We'll talk about after our half-time interval. But we'll start then with the other game of the weekend, which was Charlton 1, Rotherham 1. The wait goes on for an away win. November 2023, the last time Rotherham picked up 3 points away from home. That at Sheffield United. But they've got a point, and a point, probably not a bad result away at Charlton.
yeah, not at all. The Valley is can be quite a hard place to go sometimes. Especially under Nathan Jones since he's come in towards the back end of last season. He's sort of revitalised the team in a good way, really, and that's continued into this season. He's over the window. His transfer window has been able to bring him sort of the players he wants, and that sort of match his style. In the best way possible, and the games. Well, I think the first half was a little bit sort of back and forth. Two sides, both contrasting form. Really, Charlton have started the season off really well, and the past couple of games sort of slipped off a little bit, not majorly. As things stand, they're currently sitting fifth in the table with 10 points on board. So they are. They've had a pretty strong start. Rotherham, as we mentioned, they only have one win, and that was the Yorkshire derby at Huddersfield last week. So first half was a little bit bit of an ill affair, really. Not too much going on.
It's sort of the teams going in different directions, aren't they? Charlton started so well, 3 wins, 3 clean sheets, and then haven't won in 2, whereas Rotherham started poorly and then won last week, drew here. So they're sort of going in opposite directions, aren't they,
They are,
early on?
yeah. Rotherham picking up a little bit of momentum, and yeah, Charlton. But as you said, Charlton are still doing well, but sort of not as well as at the start of the season, if that makes sense. Liam Kelly opened the scoring in this one, and I don't know if you've seen it, Jamie, but an absolute thunder strike
Yeah,
from
absolute
distance.
wonder goal, wasn't it? I mean, it got laid off by Johnson Clark Harris, who sort of gets an assist to add to his goal from last week. But I mean, it's all about the strike, isn't it? It must be 25, 30 yards out, and he take a couple of touches and then absolutely rifled it home. And a really fantastic goal. But the goal up the other end was just as good, if anything. 2 great goals in this one. But yeah, the Kelly goal, yeah, absolute thunderbolt, probably. Yeah, it's a great way to describe it.
I bet sort of all the Millers fans were sort of holding on, seeing if they could, if the team could just hang on to the 3 points away from home. But that was not to be the case. As Chuckson equalising for Charlton about 10, 15 minutes later.
Mm.
And that's his first goal since early April. And I think a point is about a fair result. One apiece. I think it's about fair. As I said, sort of two sides, both in contrasting form. and EK also scored from distance, and Kelly's with his thunderbolt strike early. So two goals, both of deserving quality. Probably both enough to win a game, but it's football. I think a point is about fair result, and Rotherham will be happy with the trip to London, and they're able to bring a point down the M1 back to South Yorkshire.
Yeah, it's not a bad point, all things considered, with Charlton doing as well as they have done sort of early on this season, and Rotherham sort of just about getting going. A point away from home isn't bad, and they'll get that away win eventually. Obviously, last season, how much um, they struggled last season, and they didn't win away all last season, wasn't it? I think it was it 2022? It must have been
Yeah.
the away win, because they didn't win a single away game last season. So that'll be something they want to correct early on, really. You want to get that sort of monkey off your back before it becomes an issue and something you think about. You're taking these long away days. You don't want the players and the fans to be thinking on the way down, oh, we can't win away, we can't win away. They really need to get that monkey off the back, and I'm sure they will.
Yeah, they will, and I'm sure Steve Evans is not going to shut up about it. Really, sort of getting rid of this sort of demon, really, that's sitting on the Rotherham side. The fact that they've not won away from home in absolutely ages. So Steve Evans will be the first person to admit that they need to break this streak, really, and they almost did that. For me, I think actually they've got a good little triangle up top, Rotherham. So Malik Wilkes at the sort of the top of the midfield. They're not quite that. They're not quite. Well, they are a bit at the top of the midfield and down. So 4-1-2-1-2. So Malik Wilkes at the top of the diamond, and then Clark Harris and Sam Nombe just above Malik Wilkes. I think that as a little triangle, when everyone's on form, when everyone's sort of singing in the same hymn sheet, I think that can be a really strong, powerful attacking outlet for Rotherham. It's just a case of everyone being on the same wavelength, being on the same page. But those three players on the day have got real quality. I think it's just about getting
the top League One players, aren't they?
They are, yeah. It's about getting consistent game time as a little trio together. We know Malik Wilkes has only been in for a couple of games. I know he scored against Huddersfield, and actually, I think he'll be one that will want to make a point, really, because his time at Sheffield Wednesday was very disappointing. You know, he's had great spells at Hull. He's played for Doncaster as well before Barnsley also. So, but all with a little bit of mixed bag, really. So he'll be wanting to definitely make a mark. And it's got off to a pretty good start. You know, the Yorkshire win against Huddersfield, he scored in that one. Clark Harris assisted Kelly, as you mentioned earlier. So there's a lot of focus on that attacking outlet, and I think they certainly do have the players to do that. It's about them performing on a consistent basis and all being on the same wavelength.
Fantastic. Yeah, we had him for a season at Doncaster. I think it was something like 14, 15 goals, near enough 10 assists. He had a really good season with us. And Hull, obviously, where he was for a longer period before switching to Sheffield Wednesday. So it's nice for him. This is obviously a loan,
Yes.
but his contract is out at the end of the season. And about all things sort of seem to be pointing at the fact that he won't be getting another contract. And if anything, you would expect he might go to Rotherham permanently if this season does go to plan. But on the away record, they're at home the next two games, but then they've travelled to Shrewsbury and then to Cambridge back to back. They've got to pick up that first away win in however many months, however many years, in those two games there, you'd imagine.
Yeah, surely you would not put it past them getting the 3 points. But you know, it's League One. Cambridge are a good side. Oftentimes like that, sides like that, Cambridge and Shrewsbury, can actually quite be frustrating to play against because they sit back quite defensive and they don't give you much space to play with the ball. Yeah, it's just quite frustrating to play against, but it works for them. It gets those points on board. So, but you would, one of those two, I'm sure. The sort of the away duck, if you like. I'm sure that record will be broken at some point. So yeah, definitely within the next month or so, I can see Rotherham picking up the first away win.
That's it. And you mentioned Steve Evans. A bit of Steve Evans bingo. One of the questions we got in from a listener. I did have to talk to our co-host, one of the preview podcast hosts, Sam. He had to give me a bit more information on this because I have to admit this had passed me by. but it seems to
You've
be a
never,
bit of a Twitter.
is it your first phenomenon? Steve Evans
It's
bingo.
my first hearing of Steve Evans bingo. So in this one, the ones to tick off your bingo sheet was blaming the ref, saying they deserved a win, and saying they were underestimated. It could become a feature of our podcast. I think Steve Evans bingo.
Yeah, I feel so. I feel like you've got get the jingle ready and make it a regular occurrence. But yeah, it's always funny in his post-match interviews. There's always something, It's never his fault or never his team's fault. Really, there's always some external factor. I think he got booked actually towards the latter stage of the game as well. So I don't know if that makes it onto the bingo card or not. But there's always
It's
something.
sort of a journalist's dream, though, isn't it? Like a reporter's dream in his post-match interviews, because no matter what the game. It could have been the worst game you've ever seen. It could have been the best game you've ever seen. He's going to give you such a funny or a good line out of his post-match interview.
Yeah. But also, then I guess he could flip, and it could be pretty hard to deal with, I'm sure, at times. But yeah, certainly entertaining, that's for sure. It's
newsworthy, isn't he? Yeah.
With his comments post-match. But yeah, there's always something with Steve Evans. Although when he's one of those that you'd rather have managing your side than playing against your side, I think.
Well, quite.
Because he does always manage to grind out results, but his interviews are very entertaining, albeit there's always an external factor into why his team has lost.
That's it. Well, another manager who likes an entertaining interview. How's that for Wrexham?
That's good. I like that. That's good.
We'll move across to Darrell Clark and Barnsley, a 2-1 win for them. Seb, I'll let you go. Obviously, your team, you were there at Oakwell, and a victory for Darrell Clark's side.
Victory indeed. A little bit like Rotherham's away record, our home record has been atrocious, really, in recent times. I think we dates back to about March, April time, our last victory at home. So a long time coming. Obviously, we've had the off season in between all that, but towards the back end of our season, we just weren't winning enough games at home. So that was disappointing. But what was disappointing was Davis Keeler-Dunn on his Barnsley debut, receiving the ball after a nice Luke O'Connell flick, curling the ball past the Bristol Rovers goalkeeper to put us 1-up after 15 minutes on the clock. It was great finish. Obviously, we've been after him for a long time from Mansfield. He actually admitted this week that it was weird playing for Mansfield against Barnsley in that first game of the season, because he sort of knew that there was interest in him, and he knew that Barnsley weren't just going to give up. They had a couple of bids rejected, and they sort of knew that they weren't going to give up. So, it was attack versus defence. From minute one, really. Barnsley were great. Bristol Rovers were really poor. We passed it around them all the time. But then it was a mistake at the back which let the away side in it. It was Donovan Pines and Gaga Slanina in the Barnsley goal. Sort of a little bit of miscommunication. There's already been warning signs before that. A couple of sort of, you clear it, no, you clear it, sort of wobbles. But then I think it happened about twice before, and then it happened, and then ultimately conceded the goal. Situru got in between them, and
So the fans weren't chanting USA, USA when that happened?
They were. No. Well, they were not for that particular. No, they certainly weren't.
That was my sort of longing memory from the Lincoln, sort of the Barnsley's away game at Lincoln, where every time Donovan Pines or the goalkeeper touched the ball, it was USA, USA every single time.
Well, yeah, between the two USA internationals, they caused a bit of a mess at the back, which is really annoying because, as I said, it's just been one-way traffic, really, against the run of play, long ball forward, and it just, the ball wasn't dealt with. It just had to be hoofed up and dealt with, and it wasn't. So, yeah, Situru got in and sort of poked home in the empty net. And I'm sure Donovan Pines would not have appreciated this, but he got hooked at half-time, and Barnsley changed the shape. And in fairness, Bristol Rovers had a bit more possession and they had a bit more opportunities at goal. But then Adam Phillips doing what Adam Phillips does, stepping up and rescues Barnsley, really headed in from a Barry Cotter right-handed cross in front of the Ponty end to give us the 3 points. And we did hang on. It was 7 minutes at a time, but it seemed to feel like 70. It just went on and on. Sort of a certain amount of time's gone and you think it's been ages, but it just... and then it started to rain. It was just like a typical League One. We had 11 men behind the ball. You just think, typical Barnsley if you concede late on. But we didn't. We hung on. So it was good to see us sort of grind out a result and game management and to claim 3 points at home.
Which is the point. It's always an important aspect, isn't it? You can play as well as you want, but you've got to have that game management as well. It's always nice when you see your team do both in one afternoon. It's always a good one. Adam Phillips, you mentioned, he was great for my fantasy team again this week. He's a bit of an ever-present in that, and he seems to keep popping up with a goal or an assist. And see what you make to this. The stats read as a bit of a one-sided affair, if anything. 16 shots, 8 on target for Barnsley, and 8 shots, 2 on target for Bristol Rovers. Is that a fair reflection of the game?
No. Certainly the first half an hour, Barnsley were absolutely dominant. We had loads of chances. We were sort of passing it around them really easily, really. A couple of opportunities from set pieces as well. And then after that, then Rovers got the goal. Bristol Rovers got the goal. And then into the start of the second half, Bristol Rovers started much stronger and did challenge our defence a few times, particularly on Cherry up top, caused a few havocs at the back. Really, a little bit of danger for them up top. So yeah, the stats don't sort of truly reflect the full game. But probably reflect the result in that overall Barnsley were the better side over the 90 minutes and did deserve. But yeah, that first half an hour, Barnsley were all over them and just couldn't capitalise. They got the first goal, but just couldn't answer the tally, which is a shame, really. But ultimately, Adam Phillips rescued us. I think it's for a fourth goal in 5 games, something like that. He's just on a roll, really.
Third goal. 3 goals in August. Yes, it'd be his 4th goal of the season so far. Yeah. He's in really good form, isn't he? He seems to always be in good. He's sort of really reliable, a bit like Luca O'Connell next to him. That midfield duo are so reliable, and it does help when sort of the team is struggling around them that you've got 2 rocks in midfield that you know are going to have a good game.
Yeah, and the introduction of Matty Craig as well at the base of that midfield. He's only small, but he can tackle. That's for sure. Sort of puts his body about, and that really helps. And Connell and Phillips get forward, and in terms of more of an attacking sense, then you've just added in Keeler Dunn, the quality that he brings, and Cosgrove upset as well up front, led the line really well. So it's fitting nicely. The players are coming in together. A few injury concerns about Barry Cotter and Adam Phillips actually after his goal went off injured, so it's a little bit of a concern. But all be well. It's not too serious, but yeah, all be well. A good typical League One 3 points is what I was saying coming out of the ground. So you have to win ugly at times, and that's exactly what Barnsley did in the end of it. So good 3 points for Darryl Clark's side.
Fantastic. We do have one more listener question before we head to our half-time interval, and it is about the debutant Keeler Dunn. How important will he be at Barnsley? Obviously, you mentioned how long and how much they were trying to get hold of him for, and they eventually got him an instant impact. But how important do you think he'll be for this season?
Well, yeah, if we go off his debut, he's going to be our best player of the season. I think just right from the minute off, he was sort of showing off, nice couple of touches, couple of turns past defenders, showing off really well. And if he continues to do that, I think he'll be a massive asset to the team, particularly in those attacking areas where Barnes have struggled towards in the start of the season. We've had a couple of injuries there as well, but he'll be a massive asset to the team. Just from his first game, we've seen the quality that he will bring to the side. I think having him has then sort of raised the levels of the other players in the team as well, which is really good. I think really he could have chosen a better club than us, but I'm very happy he's come to us. He looks a great player, although watching me a one-game wonder now, but I think he'd be massively important for us.
Well, he proved how good he was at Mansfield, didn't he?
Exactly.
He proved that he's consistent and he's going to constantly have good games, good performances, and I don't see a reason why he wouldn't bring that to Barnsley.
No, that's true, and I think he's worked with Darryl Clark before as well, so sort of knows what he's all about. So that relationship will be massively important as well. So I can see him being a star player for sure.
Fantastic. So we're going to head to a quick break, and then we'll come back, talk about our third and final game of the weekend, and then delve into some listener questions. Welcome back then, League One Lowdown here on the Deck Podcast Network. We'll dive in straight away to the third and final, unbelievably to say, League One game of the weekend, and it was in Wales. Wrexham 3, Shrewsbury Town 0. Ollie Palmer, Elliot Lee, Jack Marriott all on target. A bit of a battering on the stats and the highlights as you look at this one. Shrewsbury really struggling, it seems, and a result out of all the games in League One, and obviously more games in League Two. You go through all the fixtures on the Saturday morning, and this is the one you stick on the acca. This is the one you the obvious result is a Wrexham win, and that's what came in the end.
Yeah, they ultimately got that, and three different goal scorers as well for Wrexham, and yeah, the result has seen them go to the top of the League One table. Albeit, there were only 3 games on Saturday, but nevertheless, they are top.
The 3 points clear as well.
Yeah, they are. They are. Yes, with a very commanding performance at home at the racecourse. I'm not, 3 points. Good, as you said, stats dominant display. I'm not really sure what to say really, but it's just a typical sort of Wrexham dominant performance. We saw it so many times last season in League One. They've come up to a new division and have just continued that good momentum. And yeah, evidently they've seen them go to the top of the table under Phil Parkinson so far. Jack Marriott scoring third goal of the season for Wrexham, so he's been a great sort of signing for the League One side, and yeah, it was almost a little bit of a derby. I think they've got a little bit of history,
it is,
Wrexham and Shrewsbury, so I'm sure the Shrewsbury fans were disappointed with that result, and I saw a little bit of back and forth on Twitter as well. But yeah, just a dominant derby display, I think, from Wrexham. 3 different goal scorers: Ollie Palmer, Elliot Lee, Jack Marriott, are all proven goal scorers at this level. Have all played in this league before. Ollie Palmer has been at Wrexham for a while as well. And as soon as it's 2-0 at half time, it can go either way, really.
Yeah.
The next goal is crucial. So to get that third one, just 15 minutes after the halftime break, I think is massive, really, and very beneficial. Stood them in good stead. Phil Parkinson, I think, will be hugely important this season because of his experience in the division, and because he's been at Wrexham a while as it is. I mean, I think he's managed Bolton before in League One, Bradford when they were in League One as well. So he knows what he's doing in this league. He knows the qualities needed, and I think he can show that at his Wrexham side. So yeah, there will be some force Wrexham. Whether it'll take a little bit of time and then they'll dip off, I'm not sure. But what we can say is they have started the league very strongly with a strong group of players.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Phil Parkinson. I think that's interesting, sort of to pick up, and as a real reason they are doing so well early on this season because he has that experience. He's been around the block twice over, and he knows exactly what he's doing. And they play a different style of football to, I guess, what you would call the modern way, whatever that means. But he's a bit different, a bit more of the old school, a bit more traditional, and it works perfectly for what Wrexham do. And in this game, they were ahead in every single metric, and obviously the most important one, they were up 3-0. But on the other end of things, with Shrewsbury, a couple of the goals, the first goal especially, the defence was nowhere to be seen. Palmer just sat at the back post. He could have had a deck chair because there was absolutely nobody near him. He had a little sit down on the edge of the box and then a little tap in because there was nowhere, just no one to be seen around him. And defensively, you got to worry about things like that. And as much as you go into this game, you think, oh, yeah, it's going to be a Wrexham win. The manner of it, I think, would probably be the disappointment from a Shrewsbury perspective.
Yeah, and yes, I think it was the second goal, and Ciala mistake at the back for Shrewsbury.
It loops up in the air.
Yeah, he's got to just do so much better with that, and just sort of get his boot through it, clear it up the field, and just sort of, I'll just let the ball go, and I don't know, just sort of For me, it was a bit of a half-assed attempt really to try and clear the ball, to get any sort of contact on the ball, and then Wrexham were in a goal and scored really. So and they're not helping themselves at the back, Shrewsbury, and I am a little bit concerned for them how they get on this season. They've had a few wobbles the past couple of seasons, but I can definitely see this season perhaps being the one that they do go down, or they do struggle even more than they have done in recent years.
Yeah, it's 1 win and 4 losses. They beat Leyton Orient last week, who we do have a question about, so we'll get on to Leyton Orient. But that's the only team they've beaten so far this season. They had a penalty shootout victory over Notts County, 3-3, and then they won on penalties in the Cup. But every other game, they have lost. Stevenage, Peterborough, Huddersfield, and then obviously this game against Wrexham, a couple of cup games in there as well. So it's not been the easiest fixture list so far this season, but in a division like League One, you're struggling to find easy games. So you've got to pick up points against everybody, really, or at least be competitive in games. So they're in the relegation zone, Shrewsbury, and yeah, I'm with you. I think I'd be worrying about Shrewsbury. I mean, one of their summer signings, Harrison Biggins, sort of left Doncaster, and he's already gone. He brought him in the summer,
Yeah,
didn't really get in the team first couple of games, and he's now gone on loan back to League Two and to Carlisle, I believe it is. And you look at that, and that's a bit of a warning sign for me that they're bringing in someone, and it was to replace Tom Bayliss, who obviously departed for Lincoln, and the replacement for him 2-3 games into the season, they've decided, oh, actually, he's not quite good enough,
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah,
Harrison
yeah.
Fingers has gone, well, I don't really want to sit on the bench, and it's not worked already. So that's a really big warning sign for me. And then you look at a performance like this, and defensively, really, really poor. So I think as good as it is for Wrexham, and as positive as you have to be about them, the other end of it is a Shrewsbury team who are pointing every direction towards having a really difficult season.
Yeah, I agree absolutely. It could be a long old season for them, absolutely. And they just have to a bit like Barnsley did at home this season. They just have to grind out results. They can't give away cheap mistakes. They can't give away errors. If they've got to lead, if they've got a lead or they've got a point, they just have to hold on for it, and a bit of game management, bit of housery to see out results and progress up the table really, because I'm sure their fans will not want to be hovering down at relegation zone, which is currently where they are at the moment. Albeit it's pretty early on in the season, but I'm pretty sure they will not want to be hovering there in and about there. So they just have to do what they can to get any sort of results and points on the board.
That's it. And we'll move then to our sort of question time section to finish off this week's episode. And we've got a question that relates to two of the teams we've talked about, Barnsley and Wrexham. And the question is, are they serious contenders? And I don't know if for automatics or for playoffs that meaning, but I'm going to take it as the latter, because I think they are both off the bat at the start of the season playoff contenders. Obviously, Wrexham sit top. Barnsley third, so automatics at the minute is obviously where they're sort of in and around. But I think for playoffs, I don't see a reason why Wrexham and Barnsley aren't playoff contenders and won't be there
Yeah,
or
yeah.
thereabouts come April.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Yeah, if we look at the league in general and the teams in the league, Barnsley, Wrexham are in the top six just on paper, and that's before the respective dominance, respective starts to the seasons. Really, both of which have been pretty dominant. Particularly Wrexham's. Barnsley took a few games to get into it, but now they're in a little bit of a rhythm. They're in good form. Really, that they are proving their worth a little bit more, particularly with a couple of additions from Deadline Day. So yeah, definitely serious contenders for the playoffs. I'd question if they're both serious contenders for the automatic places. Both, it's achievable for both. It's definitely achievable, but whether they are serious contenders, I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
I think because of the qualities that say at Birmingham, at Huddersfield as well. There'll be a lot of teams fighting for the top two spots. And
No,
whether
I'd agree
Barnsley
with
or
that.
Wrexham, whether Barnsley or Wrexham can nip into that, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I don't think either of them are going to be there or thereabouts with automatics, but playoffs, absolutely. I think they're both going to be in the mix come the end of the season. And Barnsley, I remember saying at the start of the season, I didn't think they would get in the playoffs, being a rebuild season, but the rebuild has gone really well over the summer. They put a really good squad together. Darrell Clark's got a tune out of them early on, and Kilo Dunn, obviously the later addition in the transfer window, he's made a huge difference already. You can sort of sense that, and the bit of energy and belief it gives a place that they've managed to get a player they've been hunting and searching for so long. I think that makes a bit of a difference as well in terms of atmosphere and how confident the team is. So I think Barnsley are giving themselves a real chance to do better than maybe I thought they would at the start of the season and get themselves into the playoffs once again.
Yeah, agree, absolutely agree. And we covered this, I think, right at one of the early episodes. There is so much more quality in League One in general than there was last season. So last season, in terms of the teams that come down, Reading and Wigan both struggled in terms of money, whereas this season we've got Birmingham that have just spent 50 million plus on one player, and that itself, yes, is a bit excessive, but that itself sort of shows a sign of intent, as with other teams as well, that have come down, and similarly other teams that have strengthened that were in the league last season as well, the likes of Bolton, Charlton are obviously on the rise as well. So a lot of teams are doing better. So there could be a lot of teams in amongst it. It's a strong division this year, but Barnsley and Wrexham, which is a question definitely in the playoffs.
We've teamed me up nicely there because you say it's a strong division. And our next question is about the only team who haven't got a point so far. Sorry, Sam, but it is Leyton Orient. And the question is, will Leyton Orient do what they did last year and have a good run of form after the international break? I mentioned last year, I had to look back in the stats for this one, that there were 4 games without a win at the start of the season and then picked up a little bit as they got into the start of September, that international break, sort of the early international break of the season, and they picked up and they got themselves on a decent run of form, and eventually obviously got quite close to the playoffs around sort of March, April time. They were really knocking on the door, and in the end it was a good season for them, and they started off poorly last season. So I mean, Leyton Orient are going to hope that that's the case, isn't it, that they've start off poorly again and have the same good result, but took me a bit by surprise that they've struggled as much as they have in the early stages this season.
Yeah, I agree. I know we covered it a little bit last week, but it's a little bit of a concern, really, the slow start. You mentioned that they had similar last year. I honestly do not think they're going to reach the heights of last season. I can see them definitely clawing away from sort of the relegation battle, but I can see it being more of a mid-table finish. Possibly even more towards the lower end of the table, sort of between that mid-table and the relegation zone, maybe like a 17th, 18th finish. I can't see them really pushing. Sort of just to add to my points previously as well, because of the strength of some of the teams in the division this year, I can't really see Leyton Orient being a surprise package, like perhaps they were last season. We covered last week about sort of their youth in attack and relying too much on players that perhaps have not really played a lot, if not at all, in this division. And with that comes quite a lot of pressure with them. So I'm not sure. It shows what I know, because last week I said Wellens was in for the Blackpool job, and I think Blackpool pulled the name out of the hat and signed Steve Bruce. So it shows what I know. But that was my prediction, Wellens. So that's not going to happen anytime soon. So Wellens is here to stay, I guess. That means. Yeah, it can definitely claw them out of where they are now, but not to the extent of last season.
Yeah, I remember sort of saying last week when you were talking about Richie Wellens in sort of the Blackpool job context that I don't see it happening, just given that he signed that big contract this summer.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to take the win on that respect.
A 1-0 to you. Yeah.
I did not see Steve Bruce coming in at Blackpool. I know that the guys on the preview podcast talked about it last week. I mean, a real shock, that appointment. But a good time for it. Obviously, the international break this weekend gives him a bit of time to bed in a couple of ideas. whatever those ideas are going to be before their
Who
first game.
knows?
I don't think Steve Bruce knows. Not to be too harsh to him.
He,
He's been
didn't know
around.
that. He didn't know there was. You see that video? He didn't know there was an airport in Blackpool.
In fairness to him, neither did I. I did see that video. So I posted on the Blackpool Twitter, sort of like reviewing his first day. And he was asked sort of what he makes of it all, and he goes, "Yeah, it's a great training ground, great facility. There's a lot of aeroplanes. I didn't know there was an airport in Blackpool." So he's good value, Steve Bruce, if nothing else. And to be honest, I don't think it's a bad appointment.
No, I agree. Yeah, I agree.
I think in League One, I think he's going to be
Not so sure.
absolutely
Yeah.
fine.
It'll be fine. Yeah, it's a bit of a rogue one, really.
It's a bit out of left field, isn't it? But we'll see. It's a bit of entertainment value. Steve Bruce back into football and back in League One, so I'm sure we're going to be talking about him. We can add him to the list of managers. We sort of like Steve Evans, we always talk about, and Darryl Clark, and we can add into that list of the managers that we seem to get a lot of Nathan Jones as well.
Yeah, Nathan Jones as well.
But we've got a couple more questions, all coming in from the Twitter, the X account, which is League One Lowdown, the number one. So every weekend, Sam very helpfully puts out a little post asking for questions. You can send them in anonymously. Can't say that. Need to get my teeth in again there. That's bloody hell.
Easy for some there, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. But you can send in some questions on there for next week's episode when the time comes. But this one here is: should League One have automatic international breaks like the Championship and the Premier League? Obviously, in the context that only 3 games happened this weekend. It takes 3 players. If you have 3 players in your squad who have played, I think it is more than 25% of games, then you can ask for the game to be postponed. But that includes under 21s. I mean, Lincoln's game got postponed, one of many, and they had all players in the under 21s, Northern Ireland, and it sees the game postponed. And for me, maybe you don't need international breaks adding for League One, but you just need that bar lifting.
Yeah.
I think it just comes with the territory. If you've got good players, then they're going to go on international duty, deal with it, because there's that many teams in the division who have these players going out on international duty. It's not that much of a disadvantage that you're missing 2 or 3 players. And if anything, it helps in terms of fixture congestion, because this game's are going to be played on a Tuesday night somewhere where the team that's missing 3 players international duty now, they might be missing 3 players because of injury when the game gets rearranged. So it doesn't really matter too much. I think rather than adding international breaks, we just need to raise the bar for getting a game postponed, because it is a little bit daft when a game's getting called off because 3 players are playing for an under 21s team.
Yeah, no, I agree. When Barnsley were first in League One, I don't remember it being such an issue, really, or sort of a talk. But maybe there was one game in the whole game week that was called off because of international call-ups. So it was a minority, whereas nowadays it seems to be the majority in the fact that games are getting called off left, right, and centre for international call-ups. I agree. Definitely, the bar needs to be raised higher. The 3 call-ups is. I can see why 3 call-ups is important. Say it's, I don't know, your main goalkeeper, your main striker, and your main centre half. That obviously is your spine of your team, which does impact how a certain team plays, and you do always say that you want a solid spine throughout the team to play every minute of every game. Obviously, that's not always possible, but that is sort of the saying, really. So I can see, just an example, if like I said, goalkeeper, centre half, and main striker were all called up, then the team is significantly sort of punctured in terms of its quality. So whether it. Yeah, do you know what I mean? It does bear down.
I think it just needs a bit of a think, really. If you
maybe
you lift the bar to 5, say, but a goalkeeper counts as 2, something like that. Because if you're missing a goalkeeper, obviously that's really impactful, and maybe that counts a little bit more. I think that's just chucking an idea out there, but I think it needs a bit of a rethink in that respect.
It definitely does. Yeah. I think 3, and the fact we have only had 3 games in this game week is really poor. So the whole thing about international breaks is that it's primarily Premier League and Championship off, but there's always League One and League Two. Well, now there isn't. There's only the 3 3 games this time, and next time there might only be 2 or even 1. Yeah, it does need looking at, absolutely. But we're going to have this same debate, I guess, in November when there's another pointless international break. So it's never ending, really.
That's it. The sort of the bane of my life of international, because I don't really watch international football.
There's nothing to do. And
when the World Cup, the Euros is on, but that's the only thing. The other side of it, before we move to our final question, because it gives a bit of focus to League Two, but to non-league as well, which is always nice. And obviously not in our division, but Chris Wilder, the Sheffield United manager, he was pictured pint in hand at Sheffield FC with the oldest team, one of the older teams in the world, and that's what you like to see from an international break. That it gives a bit of focus to non-league. You get the non-league days, which I think are always a positive for football down the pyramid. And I mean, I watch quite a lot of non-league football, and you get really good standard football. And I think it's hard to see for fans of a league club, because you're always at the game. But international breaks, that is the other positive for me, that it allows people to have a walk into non-league, go and see a non-league a team, a local side, and I think a bit more of a push is needed on that. But it's always a positive when it does happen.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. There's definitely pros to not many, but there's definitely pros to an international break, and one of which is, as you said, supporting non-league. But the whole thing does need a little bit of a rethink. And yeah, the whole idea of it's international break, but League One aren't affected, I think is definitely an old, outdated statement as well.
Fantastic. Well, finally then, a bit of a quick fire one to finish, bit more fun. August Player of the Month for League One. I'll let you go first, Seb. Go
on. Well, we were chatting before we started about my choice, and it can only be one winner, and that's Adam Phillips from Barnsley. 4 goals, 1 assist so far in League One this season. He's had an absolute storming start to the season. No, the past few seasons, I don't think he scored his first goal to about October, November, and then has gone on good form. Whereas this season he started his good form early, which is really nice to see. Him, Keeler and Cosgrove, plus Connolly as well. I think Barnsley can be a formidable force, and Phillips has 4 goals to prove that so far this season. So Adam Phillips is my shout, joint top goal scorer in the league with Alphamere this year so far as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, 3 goals in August for him. A couple of man of the matches as well. He's been really impressive. For me, I've gone for Stockport's Kyle Wooten. Also 3 goals in August. A couple of assists in 4 games. So 5 goal contributions in 4 games. And sort of a real important figure in what has been a surprise package team so far this season. He's been a really important cog up there. In Stockport. So he's my pick. We'll see who actually gets it. I'm not quite sure. But
those 2 will be up there, I'm sure.
They've got to be up there. He's probably going to go to Alpha-May, though, isn't it, if we're honest? But I think it's just that's why I've gone for Kyle Wooten. Obviously, a team that no one expected to be as good as they have been, and he's been a really important aspect of that. So I think he does deserve it for our first month of the season. And I'm
also,
sure that...
before we go, did you see about Victor Adebayo at Bolton?
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So that came out. It would have been last week with the Bristol Street Motors Trophy. Victor Adebayo at Bolton missed the Bristol Street Motors Trophy game against Barrow because of a sneeze. It was a sneeze so powerful that he hurt his ribs and his back. So I don't know quite what happened there. A Guinness World Record level sneeze from Victor Adebayo. Got himself out of that Bristol Street Motors Trophy game. It smells a bit fishy to me. That I don't think he fancied the game against Barrow on the Tuesday night.
He just didn't want to play Barrow. He was too scared,
Oh, yeah, so a bit of comic relief there as I saw that. It was on the BBC Sport, put that on their social media channels. Not something you see every day.
Certainly not, and a good way to end as well.
That's it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you've been with us on YouTube, Sam and Callum will be back before the weekend for their preview episode, and then same time, same place next week. Me and Seb will be back to review a full assortment of
Yes, back to normal.
fixtures. So we'll be back to normal next week. Thank you, everyone. Subscribe, like, give us a 5-star review, as they say, wherever you listen to the podcast. And thank you for listening to the League One Lowdown here on the Deck Podcast Network.